Hi y'all. Welcome to Southern Soul True Crimes. If you are new here, thank you and welcome. If you're a returning member, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about Karen and Gordon Alexander. Karen was born on September the 28th of 1966 to parents Weldon and Vera Alexander. Gordon was born on December 1967. They were living in the Carmichael neighborhood. They had been living in this very home for 6 years. A subdivision with low to moderate income families. Some say the children of the neighborhood were a little rowdy. You could see kids riding their bikes together in the neighborhood. Karen and Gordon also liked to ride their bikes. At the time, Weldon was 47 years old. He was employed at the Cooper Tire Factory. He had been working there for 16 years. He would retire from there some years later. Vera stayed at home and was under a doctor's care for mental health reasons. She was 34 years old. So on the morning of April the 8th of 1981, Weldon Gordon makes his way home from working at Cooper's Tire Factory. It's about 7:20 in the morning, and he had done this many times before, but this time as he stepped onto his porch, he immediately knew something was wrong. The door was a few inches open, and usually his daughter Karen met him at the door and let him inside the house. But this morning, no one was there to greet him. This house was at 501 Baden Street in Texarkana, Arkansas. This little white home, it actually sat on the Arkansas side. Vera was in the hospital at this time. Upon going into the home he had been living in, he finds his daughter Karen on her bed with a knife in her neck. He pulls the knife out and she tries to talk to him, but he says it was just like she was just muttering something and he couldn't understand what she was saying. He makes his way to the kitchen to call the police, and he finds his son Gordon on the floor in a pool of his own blood. Laying between the cabinet and the table, the phone is off the hook and Gordon is deceased. Their father puts the phone on the hook and is looking through the phone book, trying to call local authorities. He finally just runs out of the house. He says it was just too much to take, and he just runs out. He goes to a neighbor's home and he notifies police. Karen is taken by ambulance to the Temple Hospital, and she is in ICU. She is in a coma, and she would remain there for 3 days before she also succumbs to her injuries. Gordon was already deceased, and he was sent to the state crime lab. Karen's autopsy comes back, and it says that her cause of death is because of she had a stab wound to her right eye. It was 6 inches deep, and it had hit her brain. Her throat had also been cut. She had been hit in the back of the head with something. She was also strangled. These children had been brutally beaten and murdered in their own home. Gordon's autopsy come back for the cause of death. He had a throat cut from ear to ear. He had been stabbed 16 times in the face, neck, and arms. The autopsy says he had defensive wounds. Local authorities believe that Karen opened the door for the killer at about 6:30 in the morning. It was someone they knew. She went into her room and changed from her nightgown to street clothes. They feel like she was attacked in the living room and that Gordon heard a commotion. He was in his bed. He got up, put on clothes, and went into the living room. He tried to defend himself and his sister. Authorities believe he was drugged out of his wheelchair. It was found in the living room, and he was in the kitchen. Karen was found on her bed. Authorities believe a eating kitchen knife was used in this brutal attack and left at the scene. Some say it was a butter knife left bent and on the kitchen table. But I also heard her father report that he had pulled a knife from Karen's body. There is not a lot of information on this case. You won't find any YouTube videos on it. There's not a lot of news coverage on it. It is over 40 years old. Someone has created a Facebook page in 2019. It is called Justice for Karen and Gordon Alexander. And I have found a few podcasts now over the case. I found this case on Facebook. When I saw the brutality and evilness that was done to these siblings, this brother and sister, and what a horrific death they suffered, I decided to try and tell their story. Let me tell you a little bit about Karen and Gordon. Karen was 14 years old at the time. She is said to have helped a lot around the home, like making coffee, cooking. She was shy and quiet, her friends say. They also say she was very loving, she was very smart, and a really good kid. She wanted to be a nurse when she grew up. She also liked to ride her bike, read, participate in local spelling bees. Gordon was 13 years old at this time. He was born with a heart defect, and he had to have immediate surgery. He would later go on to have a stroke, and he was paralyzed on his left side. But we also know that this did not stop him, because he had that bike accident and had broken his hip a few months before his murder, and he had been in the hospital. He also had to do some physical therapy. But we know that he was in the wheelchair due to the bicycle accident. People that knew Gordon say he had a lot of energy. He was a good kid and always smiling. He liked to collect small metal cars, and he liked to watch football with his dad on Sundays. Many friends and neighbors say this family stayed to themselves and they never had visitors. Vera was struggling with depression and did not leave the house much. Neighbors say you could see Weldon, their father, and the children at the local Piggly Wiggly with Karen and Gordon. But Gordon was buried first, and Karen was buried right after Gordon. Weldon and Vera finally moved out of that home to a smaller home, and 3 years later, she would go into the bathroom of that home and take her own life. Some say she never recovered from the loss of her children. She died on April the 20th of 1984. Weldon would go on and remarry. He is now also deceased, so all 4 of these family members are now deceased. Some people in the neighborhood actually suspected Weldon. I have my own suspicions of who did this. There are some Reddit posts accusing Vera of an affair, but we know Vera never left the home. But the local reporter in the area says there was an affair going on, but it does not say who was having the affair. That's really important, and it also could be a motive. There are some allegations of Weldon being mean to his family, but to the public they say he was also very friendly and always nice. But aren't all abusers very friendly and charming? There was nothing missing from this home, so it was not a robbery. Local authorities believe this attack, these murders, were sexually motivated. A task force was formed to solve these murders. It had 7 local detectives, 3 state police, and they worked 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They questioned over 30 people, with a neighbor saying they had seen a truck, a blue truck, a 70s model, leaving the driveway. It was a long wheelbase with no tailgate. It had a sticker on the back saying something about a cowboy. It also had a gun rack, and they say that it was trying to get out of the area really fast, so much so it was scratching gears trying to get out of there. Authorities do say that the killer took a rag and wiped down the bedstead. He also wiped down the counter, and he also wiped down the sink and washed his hands. All of that with the same rag. This family did have a dog in the front yard, but no one has made any reports about a barking dog. To me, that is strange. It's 7 in the morning and no one saw anything. All they did was hear the truck leaving. But authorities did pull several fingerprints from this home. A few years later, a serial killer named Henry Lee Lucas was taken to the home. He admitted to killing Karen and Gordon, but it was later ruled out that he was in another state at the time, and there's no way he could have done the murders. In September of 2021, a DNA company contacted a group asking about using DNA to solve this case. She is a Texarkana native and a leading DNA genealogist. Her name is Cheryl Hester. She says she was 11 years old when these murders took place. She is now working through new DNA technologies to help solve this case and get justice for Karen and Gordon. Calvin Seward was one of the officers who worked this case back in 1981. He now is retired and volunteers his time to work this case with a TAPD. It is said that these murders made a lasting impression on local officers. The home on Baldwin Street has since been torn down. A little memorial has been set up there. Now local papers report a message on a piece of paper left at the memorial, and it reads, "Dear Karen and Gordon, today has been 41 years since you were taken. There are so many people, even ones that never knew you, that look forward to the day that justice is served. Know that you have not been forgotten here on earth." The community also leaves their porch lights on every April the 8th in memory of Karen and Gordon Alexander. People are asking if you have any information, if you remember anything in this time, in this area, someone walking down the street, a dog barking, strangers in the area. If you recall anything, please call Calvin Seward at 903-826-4702. Or you can email him, and I'll leave that on this page. Karen was only 14 years old and Gordon was only 13 at the time of their deaths. It is time to get justice for these two siblings. Family, friends, and even strangers are fighting to see justice in this case. Y'all stay safe out there, and thank you for listening.